Imagine working at a warehouse where you're required to go through security screening after your shift every time because the employer wants to make sure no one is stealing from the warehouse. But the screening takes about half hour on average. Should you get paid during the screening time if this is mandatory? Or working for a meat processing facility where you're required to wear protective gear, which takes time to put on and take off every day. Should those times be compensated? What about caring for police dogs at home as a correction officer? Try to remember these three scenarios. I will discuss them at the end of the video. In the last video on the Fair Labor Standards Act, we discussed the minimum pay and overtime pay provisions, but all of those are based on what are considered as working hours. In today's video, we will share the Portal to Portal Act, which is an extension of the FLSA, to define what are working hours. The Portal to Portal Act of 1947 was established as an amendment to the Fair Labor Standards Act. It defines what activities are considered as part of the work and are eligible for compensation. So the key problem the Act addresses is clarifying compensable working hours, which is the foundation for both minimum pay and overtime pay. You can find all the details on the Department of Labor website, which I attached the fact sheet on hours worked below. Some examples of compensable working hours include: first, waiting time. If the employee was engaged to wait, it's generally considered work time. If the employee was waiting to be engaged, it's generally not considered work time. Fireman who plays checkers while waiting for an alarm is considered as working during the time because they are engaged to wait. Next, on-call time. In most cases, an employee who is required to remain on call on the employer's premises is working while on call, while an employee who is required to remain on call at home or who is allowed to leave a message where he or she can be reached is not working while on call. A building maintenance worker who carries a pager and must remain in uniform and within a 2-block radius of the building or apartment complex while waiting for service calls is considered working. Rest and meal periods. Rest periods of short duration, usually 20 minutes or less, are common in industry to be paid for as working time. Bona fide meal periods, typically 30 minutes or more, are not generally compensated as work time. Sleeping time and certain other activities. Employees are generally considered working even though he or she is permitted to sleep or engage in other personal activities when not busy, like night shift nurses. For more than 24 hours shift, the employers need to provide adequate sleeping facilities and provide 8-hour uninterrupted hours. Lectures, meetings, and training programs. These are normally considered work hours. The following situations are exceptions and are not considered work hours: when it is outside normal hours, it is voluntary, not job-related, and no other work is concurrently performed. So attending academic conference related to my area of study is compensated for my job. Travel time. The principles that apply in determining whether time spent in travel is compensable time depends upon the kind of travel involved. For instance, ordinary home to work travel before the regular workday and at the end of the workday is not work time. Home to work travel time on a special one-day assignment in another city is normally considered work time. Travel that is all in a day's work, such as travel from job site to job site during the workday, is work time. These are general rules. However, please keep in mind that it depends on how does the court interprets and makes the judgment. And in many cases, it could not be a clear cut. Now let's look at the 3 cases rulings, which are the 3 scenarios I asked you at the beginning of this video. Integrity Staffing Solutions Inc. versus Basque. In the Supreme Court case, Integrity Staffing Solutions Inc. versus Basque, employees at Amazon warehouses staffed by Integrity Staffing Solutions were required to go through security screenings at the end of their shift to prevent theft. These screenings sometimes took up to 25 minutes, and employees argued that they should be compensated for this time as it was required by the employer. The Supreme Court ruled that time spent in security screenings is not compensable under the Portal to Portal Act because the screenings were not a principal activity of the job. The court explained that the act requires compensation only for activities that are integral and indispensable to an employee's main duties. However, similar issues were ruled differently at the state level. For instance, in California, the mandatory screening time is considered as working hour. Check out the Amanda Flecking versus Apple Inc. case. IBP Inc. versus Alvarez. Employees at meat processing plants sued IBP Inc., arguing that they should be compensated for the time spent putting on, which we call doing, and taking off, which is called doffing, protective gears before and after their shifts under the Portal to Portal Act. The Supreme Court held that the time spent doing and doffing gear is essential for performing job duties as a principal activity and is therefore compensable under the Fair Labor Standards Act. Andres versus Dubious is another case relevant to the Portal to Portal Act. Correction officers at the Massachusetts Department of Corrections sought to receive overtime pay under the Fair Labor Standards Act for time spent caring for and transporting police dogs outside their regular work shift. The officers argued that these activities were integral to their job duties and should be considered compensable work hours. The court ruled that the time spent at home feeding, grooming, and training the dogs qualified as principal activities under the FLSA, making it compensable. However, the court left open the issue of whether commuting time was compensable, since commuting time from home to work is normally not compensable. After learning the Portal to Portal Act amended the FLSA, what is your argument on the commuting time with the police dogs as correction officers? Thanks for watching.